a.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's LinkedIn Live, Hour of Empower. Today's word is wings. How we come up with these words, I don't even know, but it's Wednesday and we're trying to match W's with W's. So if you got some good W words you want us to cover in the near future, share them in comments. Chat's open. We depend on you for direction and we want to be as relevant as possible so you can leave here with some quality takeaways. And, we're looking for you to share questions, uh, challenges, triumphs, whatever you can do to help encourage, empower other people like you is moving the show in the right direction. So, with that said, we'll move right into our special honored guest. And we've got Rita Wirtz here, who's our regular Wednesday person. And we've got Omar, who I'm sure most of you know, has been in the audience, has his own shows, is a pro at this. So, with that said, before the avalanche of comments start showing up, Rita, why don't you just say hello? What's your initial thoughts on wings? And we'll start the show.
Start with a little water. Wings. When I saw wings, I got really excited. I was going, oh, there's wings of this and wings of this and the airplane of this and this and this. And then right away, beside the caterpillar, the very hungry caterpillar, thinking of Eric Carle's beautiful caterpillar. And then all of a sudden, it's got little wings. The one that really got to me is the oldest story of Lesson from Geese. And the reason that I brought up Lesson from Geese was, of course, wings to me went right to the geese because I spent a lot of my life living around geese. Geese are really neat, and it calls to us that it's so similar to what we do in the work world, or whether we're at home or we're working with people right at, by the traditional office cooler. The bottom line is this. The lesson from geese will tell us that we have to take care of one another, that if the one at the front, the goose, gets tired and goes to the back, then they'll switch. If something happens to a goose, two geese will take care of that goose until it can come back to the flock, or they'll find another one. So I think that we should all be geese by following one another and sharing our leadership in our organizations. It's a huge difference. Lessons from geese. Let's all be geese.
Well, hey, that's a great kickoff to the show. I want to turn it right over to Omar to get his fresh take on wings. And what's so beautiful about this is later on, when the show is almost over, we can reflect on how our perspectives, insights, context has changed. So this is the base point right now. So Omar, what's your initial thoughts on wings?
Sure. First of all, thank you, Don and Rita, for having me again. I think this is the third time here, and it's good to be here with you fabulous people. Wings. It's an interesting topic, wings. I mean, it's not really, I know it was the TV show, right, back in the 70s and 80s. But when you think about wings, right, it is something that would fly somebody out somewhere. And then when you mentioned about the geese scenario, that's something I never learned about. That's awesome. But you need two wings to be able to fly. If one wing is damaged, the other one will be able to either carry you or take you down. So, but if you think of wings in an airplane, right? Sometimes with one wing isn't working, the other one can somehow successfully take you down, or the engine. But yeah, that's my takeaway.
Well, great. I look at wings as usually when someone graduates, like flying school, they get their wings.
Right.
So you've learned, you've trained, people have validated and confirmed your ability, and you get your wings, which means not only can you fly, but you can wear your wings, right? If you see Air Force pilots or even commercial pilots, they always have wings on, you know? And then if you look at the plane itself, it has wings on. So not only is the pilot working with wings, but the plane is. And I guess if you take it to maybe what's important to some other people is just like chicken wings, right? If somebody says, hey, you want to go for wings, that's a definition, and it's a quality definition because it's something it brings joy to people, usually lends itself to a party. Wings on a pilot, wings on a plane usually take you places you couldn't have gone as far and as fast without them. So, there's transportation involved, there's achievement involved, there's enjoyment involved. So, it starts to bloom outside of the seed of wings. And before we give it right back to Rita, let's make sure we cover all these wonderful people who make this show possible. We've got Kelly here.
Very was interesting.
Kelly, happy Wednesday, ready for this conversation to soar. And Kelly is definitely someone who's got wings and flies high and proud. So great to have you, Kelly. Jeff is here. Good morning. Thank you for coming, Jeff. Carrie's here, our registered comic. You know why the math book was so sad? It had lots of problems. Ashif is here. Ashif's just a wonderful gentleman. Going to have him on the show. Got a wonderful career. Kinga's here today, and we'll be actually doing her show with Kelly tomorrow. So welcome, Kinga. Great to have you. Great to have you back tomorrow. Dean's here. Morning, you good-looking group. Well, it takes you to make us as good looking as we are. Jitendra's here. Hello, everyone. Greetings from India. So we've covered where only a plane could probably take you. And Rita, what's your next level of thought regarding our discussion today?
I would like to steer for just a moment in this direction, that what does it take to get our wings? And if we want to fly in our life, how do we get those wings? What actionable steps can we take to get the wings? And I'm going to turn that back to Omar.
Sure, absolutely. So that gave me a thought, right? How do we get our wings? It could mean like, let's say you're in high school and you want to raise up that grade from an F to an A. That is one way. It could be you're in a company, right? You're an associate or you're a level entry and you want to move up to a level. That could be another way to raise your wings in that perspective. So wings has many meanings, not just only flying with the wings on the back, like a fairy or like a tooth fairy kind of thing, But wings can mean anything, yeah.
Yes.
Exactly. So what do you think, Don?
Well, I think wings also lend themselves to spreading out.
That's right.
Right? When something has wings to it, it kind of unfolds, right? And it gets wider or gets bigger.
Yes.
And that has something to do with expansion. And if you add that to achievement and expansion, right? And wings help you soar is usually where wings come in. And if Leslie Flowers was here or Bette Midler, she would sing you the wind behind or under your wings or whatever it is. She does a better job of
She's fabulous
than I say it. But that's the beauty of defining words, is taking a moment. Too many people say words and it's like they just machine gun it out. Right? It's like, boom, what did they just say? It was so fast and I didn't get it all. Versus someone who articulates, somebody who thinks about the word and is prepared to use words because they are prepared, because they think of the meaning, the value, the context, the delivery, the packaging, the presentation. I mean, one little word can combine so many elements where you gain confidence in speaking because you enjoy your words, you know how to use them. And not only that, people receive them and gain from them.
Yes.
So it's not a salutation only or a response. It's an insight and an education. Well, here's a new person I haven't seen. Timothy Hogue, hello from Minnesota. I think that MN means.
He's a friend of me and also Rita, a very good friend of mine, TJ. He goes by TJ as well. We work in the same company, and he's a good guy. We're going to be doing a LinkedIn Live together soon. We're just figuring things out. So yeah.
Well, great, and it's not that alone gives everybody context to Tim or Timothy, and it all shows that he's a known person by Omar, Rita.
Yeah.
And that should be plenty of an invitation to reach out to Tim, to everybody here, and at least acknowledge, hey, it was great being on the show together. You don't got to sell anything. You don't even got to say next step.
Yeah.
It's great to see you. You know, it was a great show. Here's Leslie. She must have heard me talking about her.
Hey, Leslie, there you are. We're looking forward for you to be on the show this Sunday with Zoomberty. So awesome. Good to see
Yeah,
you.
Leslie's moving everywhere. But I was mentioning, if she hadn't heard it, about her wonderful rendition of Bette Midler's song about being the wind behind your wings. Paul's here. Did a really good LinkedIn Live audio for the first time about 10 days ago, and me and Paul are looking at maybe doing something else. Hello, Omar, Rita, and Grandpa Don. Grateful to be here to learn and support you all. My first thought when I think of wings is flying, specifically my most freeing experience going skydiving. Well, that's really soaring and putting your wings out there. And if you see skydivers, their arms are fully extended. I mean, everything is fully extended. And, you know, why not be like a bird for a moment?
But if I may, John, so when you said spread your wings, that's another way, because if you're spreading your wings, you spread your wings of kindness. So that's another way you can do it. It's not only just having wings to fly. You can have a wing and it's going to spread the kindness all over to people. That's another thing that I thought of while you were mentioning that. And the way Paul was saying that, that's a good thought. So everybody has their own way of thinking what wings are.
Yes.
Well, go ahead, Rita. What's your thoughts?
Well, I'm going to move in another direction. If you add the word it, then you have wing it.
Mm-hmm.
Wing it comes up pretty frequently in my world. And so I'm just wondering what instances that people would like to share about how they had to wing it.
Well, you know, I think, you know, when people think about wing it, it's like what we're doing right now, right? Is when you don't know what you're going to be dealing with, you know, who you're going to be dealing with, where. But when it's responsive, it really tests your ability to be spontaneous.
Right.
You know, and how do you react? You know,
Right.
are you ready to respond, or is it something, or do you just put a pat answer on it and gloss over it? And I think that's what people have to learn, because every day they're entering conversations with even strangers.
Right.
They even have less context in situations they may be totally unfamiliar about.
Right.
So how do you show up in those conversations? And I think wings also can be labeled something that provides stability.
Yes.
Right? When you've got strong wings, it stabilizes everything. I mean, if you got a wing that's half the size or half as heavy as the other one, the thing is going to tilt. Right? So in a sense, the wings give you balance. And what does it do?
Right.
It carries what's in the middle of those wings. The people, the pilot, the cargo, right? So the wings do all the heavy lifting in a sense.
Yes.
And that's where lift comes in, is right. Who can give me the best lift? Who can give me the best tailwind?
And that's the point with the geese, Don, exactly, that the goose is getting that tailwind from the goose in front of it. And so it's benefiting and it's helping the goose to stay in the air, flying. Just amazing what geese can do. And also, I think about eagles the same way, a little bit differently, in that they fly over the storm. They fly over the problems or the challenges. So there's no end. And I can take you under my wing too.
Yeah, that's so great.
Wow.
Because, you know, what it reminds me of is what I see every day here is there's so many golden hawks.
Yes.
And I saw a bald eagle the other day.
Yes.
And when you see these birds soar, I mean, like a hawk never seems to move its wings. It just catches and just, you know, flies all over the place and circles. And then when they perch, they look so small, you know? And so wings really give you depth as much as width. And, you know, it's something, you know, I think if you look at the history of aviation, how many people have tried to add, you know, in the early days, they added wings to themselves.
Yes.
And they saw if they could flap and get up. And Leonardo da Vinci actually
Right.
was one of the first to really understand aviation and some of the models he built. So let's cover some of the people. Leslie says, winging it is stepping out in faith for me, doing it afraid. Well, sometimes whether you're afraid or not, you just got to do what you got to do, and there's a saying, sometimes you got to jump off a cliff and grow wings before you hit the ground,
Mhm,
and that's the key is winging it, is you're going from something to not knowing what the next something is. You're going to land somewhere. That's a guarantee.
yes.
How do you land and how well do you enjoy the flight? Here's a pretty strong comment. I had an interesting interaction in an audio event. I was talking to this guy who worked with Gary Vee, and he has a big following and top podcasts. And he was telling me, you don't practice your speaking, do you? For me, practice comes from doing, winging it. Well, I think what it says to most people is awareness,
Yes.
right? Sometimes you see a bird, you don't see it flying, you don't see its wings, you just see something, and most of your life is like going through life seeing things, but not really understanding or appreciating, or more importantly, how does it relate to you? And how you can amaze people with your flight, with your wingspan, that you have developed over time by making it stronger. Leslie says wings give lift for sure. Linda's here. Linda says, can say my first flight was a small plane. Pilot took us around a power plant. We had a bump made. I thought I might get wings that day. Well, the first flight anybody has is amazing. Hello, everyone. Hi, Rita. Harvey is going to be here next Sunday, actually, with Leslie Flowers. So that's going to be a new opportunity, trying to mix it up, pair it up as much as I can, bring more interesting combinations. Paul says, I've also been fascinated with aviation. Only materialist thing I want is a jet so I can essentially save time and create experience and memories for others. That's a pretty expensive wish. I know people who went out and bought boats, and they said, the best 2 days of my boat was the day I bought it and the day I sold it. But, sometimes you're better off leasing. But then again, you never know. Ann John says, this is a rare show which never needs a rehearsal. It's spontaneous. And the
It
only way we
certainly
can do
is.
it is, how do you rehearse something with 3 people? And why? Because that's just more work. And, the only way this works is if it starts at 11 a.m. and ends an hour or so later, and there's no homework or preparation. But why shouldn't everybody be at the same level as everybody else if the audience hasn't rehearsed and it's their word for the first time too? Why would we want to be any different? And I think to the goose story with the 2 gooses helping the other goose, maybe geese would be a better term for the 2. But it shows people don't want to leave people behind.
Right.
Right. And an airplane is meant to take people with you. The best flights is when you're with someone, or with 4 people or 6 people, a family, a group. Why? Because flying goes faster when you're talking to someone, involved with someone. And I think just like everything else in life, it goes better. I remember back when going through Navy boot camp, and the day we had to go through to swim qualify, we had to either float or tread water for 2 minutes and then swim around the Olympic-sized pool. Okay, I can't wait to hear the ending of this. Let me see.
Was that Carrie? Oh, Carrie's great.
Yeah.
A couple of
I
times.
had then, okay.
Hey, Carrie.
I ran out of breath at the end. The Navy SEALs were there to get us if we couldn't make it. I made it barely that day without any more in me. Well, that's swimming, and that's for both. But there are probably wings. If you look at swimming, water wings for kids, if you look at what keeps them up, keeps them safe, keeps you able to allow them to be in the in the pool. Christy Howard, just great. Also, wings many have angel wings. We have wings as we fly. First, love yourself. Sorry, late Poppy, I'm not. You're so right. And when we think of angels, we think of their wings, and that's what signifies an angel. You know, if you ever saw that movie Michael, you know, with John Travolta,
Right.
right? And he comes down for breakfast the first time, and his wings are flapping around and everything else.
Right.
You know, wings give you memories, you know, and I think that's important. Danny's here. Danny's going to be here, I believe, soon. I'll tell you right away. I don't like to just say that. Danny will be here next Thursday with Kelly. So welcoming Danny. Actually, Danny's a good friend and colleague of Harvey in England. So we're getting more of the English contingent, especially after 4th of July. Leslie Flowers, practice makes for real mental agility, self-expressed without fear. Here we go with Paul. I think you have to experience things for yourself, Don. I spent 1 or 2 years watching this reality show about yachting. It was a bucket list when I did it last night. I was grateful, yet I knew it was one-time thing. Living in Hawaii, I've had to fly. And I guess that would apply to Alaska too, because you can't really get in and out of there without a boat or without a plane. I've had days, Dean LeBay says, when I felt like a turkey, like broken wing. But life is about uplifting others so you can fly yourself. And, you know, broken wings can come back, right? There is ability to repair, you know, to get something back in the air. I mean, when planes are in wherever they service them, the hangar, those are planes that can't fly. And then somehow they get back in the air. And it's amazing what it's done to the world. Just like what this show is doing, people could never get to places any other way but through flight. And sometimes, you know, when you fly into like Canada to do some of that really cool fishing, you know, they'll take you out there in one of them float planes, drop you off, come back in a week to get you. Omar, what do you think about this show since you've been back, and how the flow of word of the day and people in the audience?
It's amazing. Yeah, it's great, Don. I mean, in the beginning, how it evolved, and having a word of the day definitely helps it make it more interesting. And having 2 people on the show is even better than having 1, right? Who knows? Maybe by next year we'll have 4 people or more. But what I was going to also mention about wings is that wings can also mean a symbol of power, can it? Right? A lot of people maybe would tattoo wings on them, or they would have it somewhere on their car, or kind of thing. I think it can mean power. I don't know what you guys think about that, but it can be some kind of like a power. They do show it on angels and stuff. The ability to be able to fly and get from one end to the other end. That is some kind of a power ability, I think, that not a lot of people, even if you look at some of the Greek mythology and stuff, a lot of them have wings, right? The Sphinx or whatever. It does mean power. What do you guys think?
I think that's a cool analogy, or at least reference, because and a lot of times, you know, people who get ahead of themselves, people say they flew too close to the sun, right?
Right.
You know, they should have been a little bit more tempered. But, you know, when you can fly, you should fly. You know, when someone gives you your wings, you should use them. And, you know, it reminds me of Kofi, who is in the Air Force now, but grew up in his book in Africa. And I remember what he mentioned is when he must have been like 7 or something, and he saw a plane for the first time.
Right.
And he asked his father, what was that? And his initial thoughts, it was like a big bird, and if you don't know, you think of what you do know about. And so it just kind of demonstrates awareness, right? The plane's in the air all the time. Thousands of planes are in the air, but who sees them? And then the other element is access.
Right.
Who gets to ride on them versus who's hitchhiking across the country? You know, so I think there's something to the awareness of what it is, what it can do for you. And that's where the mentorship comes in. That's where the community knowledge share comes in. It's so easy to learn from somebody else's story and experience and have to go through it yourself. And if you can put the puzzle together with everybody else's validated pieces, It's going to fit. Harvey's here. Harvey's got a big comment. I have to share this song with you all. All it would have been on my post. It's Birdie Wings. These are the lyrics. It's beautiful. Oh, lights go down in the moment we're lost and found. I just want to be by your side. If these wings could fly for the rest of us. And let me see if I could read this. Okay, if you have 3 minutes, listen to the song. It's beautiful. It reminds me of my wife. Well, that's great. Anything that's positive
That's right.
that you can now apply, and even use as a compliment, right? People don't fill their sentences because they're into brevity, into getting beyond the conversation versus spending time on it, right? And you need people's attention to get appreciation. And by sharing a song, building context, explaining something that's not a direct, here's what you need to do. When I think wings, I think angels and protection, Harvey says.
Me too.
And Kelly comes back with, Harvey Tuck had a couple of angels as his prop on Awesome Journey. One angel had a broken wing and represented, we all have brokenness and are still beautiful souls.
Oh, wow.
Well said, Kelly. And Christy have that Awesome Journey at 1:11 p.m. on Tuesdays. And, it's just great to get to see people in different lights, on different platforms, on different formats with different people, because it shows we have gained our wings. We can fly to different shows and be invited on to different airports, from whoever it is. And that's freedom. And that's also access. Leslie Flowers says, take these broken wings and learn to fly. It just shows how wings have found their way into art, whether it's songs. I mean, go to museums and see how many angels are in some of those Renaissance pictures, or, old masters. Love that share, Kelly. Paul, I think he just said, love that share. Here we go. I had such an amazing time on Awesome Journey. Thank you. Harvey's just a real quality guy. And, that's what builds a safe, happy flight, is your fellow passengers, that share that. Leslie says a little mushy. And with that said, Rita, what's your latest?
Well, I wanted to ask you what you all think about how we help our children in our life, whether it's schoolhouse or home. How do we help them find themselves, to find their wings to fly?
That's a pretty good question. Omar, do you want to take a shot at it?
Yeah, with me having experience with tutoring and teaching, I mean, that's an important one, right? How do we get our kids to fly and find their wings, right? For example, if you have a student who is struggling, right? Let's say he can't do his math problems, right? Multiplication, fractions kind of thing. You got to show him in a way that, it's okay that you don't know this now. Show him some problems so he's able to do it. And then with time, practice with him. Give him weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks. And then he'll soar more than the other people. If they're getting help, that means they're already a winner. If they're, because the other students could be getting A's, but they don't know that the material as well as the person who's being tutored or being helped. Because that student could end up getting A's and even getting his PhD in the future, right? So that's what I would go with. What do you think?
Well, I think that, we're finding so many ways to apply wings, to visualize what wings could be on actors, birds, planes, and I think, again, just being up in the air itself, because I always wonder, how many times I fly, is how does this thing with all these people and all this weight and all this cargo just take off and fly and then come down and land, and just a little wind will move that plane around, so it's so agile and streamlined, but also so important for what it does for everybody in there. You know, and it was a lot more fun when flying was more fun, when they gave you a magazine, a pillow, a deck of cards. I mean, but those were the old days. With that said, let me jump right back. We got tremendous comments today. I can't thank you enough. Dean says this show platform is a set of wings because just in this fastest hour on LinkedIn is transported around the world. Pretty cool. Well, you know, everybody on this show, everybody in this show is the fuel for this plane. You know, without the lift, what and that's what we're trying to do is uplift, right? You don't want a downdraft. You don't want a wind shear. You want something that as soon as they hit the gas, the thing's way up in the air, no problem. And with the fuel we bring every day, this is a wonderful flight. And sometimes the flight is the vacation. You know, it makes for the vacation. And I think, or the business trip or whatever. So when you get safely on the ground, I am so grateful. I always thank the pilot, everybody on the plane, you know, because I don't take it for granted, you know, and they have to do this every day, you know. How many times do they get complimented? Most of the time, it's an issue. Ann John says, lifting others, compassion, empathy is a super sore. I think of how gratitude, Paul Deutsch says, has given me the wings to fly through any storm over the past 3 years. Be harder than your circumstances, Alex or Mosey. You know, it's perspective, it's reflection, it's relativity. Compared to this, what? Compared to where I was, what? You know, progress. You know, it's the other thing about planes and flying. You never realize how fast you're going. I mean, these planes are going 400 or 500 miles an hour, and you're just sitting there, you know, hoping your coffee doesn't drop out of your cup.
You're sitting there comfortably and it's moving at that speed, even in your car, right? You can't even, you're just sitting there, playing your Sudoku.
Yeah, if you had to figure out how long it would take to walk where that plane's taking you, you'd appreciate it more. Fly your own wings and they'll emulate you. You know, flying is practice. Wings also remind me of my experience of flying. I didn't get my license, but I took off and landed a plane on my own. I felt freedom and peace in the sky. And my first solo flight put a very big grin on my face.
Wow, yeah.
You know, why not? I think that's quite an accomplishment. Be who you want to be. Paul comes back with, great question, Rita. In my experience, I believe many people enable my generation. A lot of them have a sense of entitlement, ladies. Learning more, why my grandpa told me experience will always be your greatest teacher. Everybody can talk, few walk. I think that's, you know, any advice you get from someone who's already flown is important. You know, experience goes a long way. You'd like to think your pilot's not doing his first flight, you know, versus, you know, something's been doing for 20, 30 years. Good morning, all. Thank you, Renata, Deb. I see you here every day. Ann Bambola is here. What a great lady. I had a chance to talk with her about a week ago at length and really know her. And she's somebody everybody, I think, should reach out and get to know and connect to. Wonderful to join us. Tapas is here, coming once in a while. So much appreciated, Tapas. Had a call with him in India, actually. Learning to Fly. Does anyone like Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers? That was a great song.
Right.
You know, that is kind of where maybe I listened to it in the past. Wings are important for each and everyone to achieve their full potential. Sheaf, do what is right, even if you're flying solo. Honesty. You know, and, you know, you got to get somewhere, you got to fly. I mean, so many times you leave, hey, got to fly. I got somewhere to go, right? So that's a phrase that a lot of people say because it's almost speeding things up.
Is it still an expression now about it's fly, or is that one gone?
Oh, no. Yes. I think I hear that. I mean, I was born in the 80s, but I do hear that. Maybe it's gone, but I remember I did hear it. But now that you mentioned it, when you mentioned wing it, I had searched it. It's a restaurant. We have a restaurant in Phoenix called Wing It, so it's kind of odd. But that's a restaurant name. I'm sure it's somewhere else too. But yeah.
Well, and you got Buffalo Wild Wings and Wingstop. So, but again, that goes back to more chicken than airplanes. Leslie says, I was a flight attendant taking U.S. troops into and out of Vietnam in the 60s via Hawaii, the Philippines, and Japan out of Oakland. Well, that was quite an experience, I'm sure. And that was quite a time in America's history.
The whole show about that, about her experience.
Jeez, yes.
Yeah. And Leslie grew up in San Francisco, so pretty close to the West Coast there. Paul Deutsch says, there's an amazing story, Harvey. I've thought about becoming a pilot. I'd love to know more about that experience sometimes. No one knew about Leslie's experience. No one knew about Harvey's experience. And these experiences are something that people might have had on their bucket list, but never got there. And you already have, so you might help somebody get something out of their bucket list and into reality. That's an amazing story. Okay, we covered that. Dean comes back with, the thing about flying is you never forget your first time. But better than that is to watch your daughter's amazing on their first time. Well, that's a wonderful opportunity to continue to pass that joy and desire for flight and really action. If you think of flying, there's action. Things are moving. You got jet engines, these turbines making all this noise. And if you're on the wing and you see how it lands, and all of a sudden the wings start coming out, and they start, how it slows down, I don't know. The wings of faith allow us to soar. So true. Whatever can lift you up, and it could be poetry, it could be art, it could be nature, it could be anything. Go back to that. Fly out of that airport more often. What serves you will continue to serve you well. Paul says, I'm curious for the panel, do you feel that our experiences craft our wings through our journey of life? Well, it tells you where, it does tell you what kind of plane you're sitting in, right? How far you can go with it. And over time, you want safe, comfortable flights too. You don't want to be looking at
that plane might have to stop for maintenance, Don.
Yeah, I mean, I've been with so many people that had so many experiences on it.
Right.
But obviously, the plane made it, or they wouldn't be telling me about it.
But if we connect that to our life, everything seems to be a metaphor this morning. That all the things we've been talking about is a metaphor for life. And so if the plane needs to stop to check out a mechanical difficulty, I can bring that right into our life, that almost every day there's something that happens now, whether it's, password changes or data breaches or whatever. But we have to be able to gently start again and get those wings going. So there's a time for maintenance. And I think that's an interesting point. I don't want to call it self-care, because that's right now, that's kind of a weak thing. We're all past self-care. I think we need to do something big. And that's where the geese come back in. If we are tired, we can go to the back. Another goose will start at the front and then again go back. And they always take the same route. And so that route works. And so if the babies experience that route, they'll go back and they'll always fly the same route. So in our life, we have a choice. We can always fly the same route, but it may not always be in our best interest. So at some point, we have to decide where our flight is going to go. What road are we going to take? And now I'm going to turn over to Omar.
Absolutely. So yeah, that is a good point. So every day we come up with that decision, right? How are we going to steer the plane in what direction, right? Are we going to wake up in the morning feeling miserable? Are we going to turn ourselves around? Are we going to exercise? Are we going to go ahead and make a positive day? Because that's going to impact the way you're going to decide and move in the direction of positivity, right? So that's a good way. And then with that experience, I mean, I wanted to also mention how one of the flights that we took one time, we were able to fly without the engine, right? We were flying from
Right. Yeah.
Arkansas, and we were able to take off, but they didn't tell anybody. So the second they landed, oh, we made it there. And that makes you think that even if you have a small portion or something wrong that happened in your life, you're still able to move on with that portion. And that's
There you go.
good there, you see, yeah.
I'd like to talk about repairing wings and turn this one to Don. In our life, when we are listening with intention to someone else and we are observing closely, and then we know to always ask that second question. Second question came from a principal, Brad Hughes. And after he said that one time on his podcast, I just kept bugging him almost every week. I go, wow, would you please repeat that again? Or would you give us the link again? Because it's that second question that makes all the difference. So when I find out in that second question that someone's really hurting and that person is in a situation where I can't fix it, but I can listen, I can be there. So I'm wondering, how does the audience and the panel, how do you feel about when and how to help repair a broken wing?
That's a good question. I think everybody's dealing with getting ready for something more, or working on something that used to serve them better, needs a tune-up or needs a change. But it's also, when I think of what we're talking about, is what's everybody's flight plan when they start their day, right? Where do you want to go today?
Right.
How do you want to get there? Because flights change with weather. They change with delays, they change with service, and you have to be able to adjust to it. And not only that, planes are carrying people. If they make a mistake, it's not like someone just said, then that's the plan. And I think it's really a matter of how comfortable are you flying, The thing that comes to mind is when someone's freaking out about flying, you want to tell them get back on the next flight, because the sooner you get back, the sooner maybe you get over it. The longer you stay away, the more it starts to create a bigger fear from you. And then another thought, and that's the beauty of this show, is it makes you think about things you don't think about very often. And that's why it's nice to have sometimes what you might consider an obscure word, because anybody can talk about confidence and courage because it's used so much and it's used so powerfully. But when you say party, like the other day, or wings, then it takes a flight adjustment on the panel and the audience's part to say, let's get our hands around this. Because where I believe I relate back to this is there's so many cooking shows where they give you one beat, and they make a meal out of this, and the beat is obscure in the whole combination when they start putting everything else together. Harvey, I hope I don't have a sore throat, says, but he has something, Harvey's just a great guy. But, I can say that about so many people, and it doesn't diminish the people. It just says there's more people like us. And the phrase that comes to mind is birds of a feather flock together.
There you go.
And you could bring feathers in. Let me cover, Linda. We have had an evening of people to speak in that topic and had to step into it and wing it for the whole program to be done was relieved when accomplished and found could just go with the flow, see how grow with change of winging it. My whole life I've winged it because I didn't want to presume. I didn't want to anticipate or expect, because it might have affected my ability to grab onto something that wasn't in the plan when I started whatever I started, and it's easier to go back. There's a saying, if you don't have time to do it right, you have time to do it over again. Right. And if you do it right, you're also doing it right for the other person. Right. Because everything takes at least two. Okay. We talked about that. Leslie's back, flew domestically back in '67. Imitez is here. Chief says, life is a balance of holding on and letting go. Be ready to fly. You know, some people can't wait to get to the airport. They can't wait to get on the plane. You know,
Mhm,
I mean,
mhm.
they're just got that uh, mentality. Kelly says, feeling safe, secure, and love allows us to fly. The support of our own tribe, community, family, chosen family gives us the confidence to spread our wings. This community gives us wings. And, you know, I think if we can hop a ride on somebody's bigger wings once in a while, and maybe we can continue to say, we got room on our plane. You know, we got some extra seats. Who needs a lift? And how many friends do you have that bring 12 people together, right? Hey, we're going to go to Vegas next week. Who wants to come with us? And better yet, who we want to take people with us, you know? And those are fun. I used to organize all these family trips to Vegas because my grandmother loved it. I mean, my mother loved all the family to get together. She loved Vegas.
Yes,
We would just have like 14 people show up and 4 or 5 days of just meeting, breakfast and dinner. Everybody else was free the rest of the time. But it's great when you can get more people to fly with you and you can fly with others. You know, most geese, according to Rita, wouldn't be able to keep up if someone didn't give
no,
them some room or some space. Just like Harvey is ready and willing to chip in anytime. There's also something freeing about winging it. It makes us unpredictable. Many people get caught up in routine ruts and the comfort zone. Sometimes we just need to step outside the box. And you know, it's so true, Paul,
it's
because
true.
what it reminds me of is if you don't plan it, you didn't have to go against your plan, right? Because if you already are certain of what you want to do, and all of a sudden, because of things around you, says that's not the right time or place, what do I do? And if you were just saying, okay, let me scope this out, let me be a scout, figure out what's going on here before I commit. And I think the most important thing you can do, and that's why they have air traffic control, is communicate. You say, hey, we're getting low on fuel. What do I do? Right? You don't, and that's where you can fly the plane and let someone else tell you, you know, just like a spotter, right? Move it over here, move it over there. Now you're in range, or now it's all fine. That's reassuring, right? That hey, we got your back. We know where you are. We're going to land you in Topeka or whatever it is. Uh, you know, actually, my daughter flew to Hartford last week. She got a big job in cybersecurity, and she had to go to headquarters. And because of the storm in Denver, all the lightning, they kept flying. You know, okay, now we got to go East Colorado for a while and come back. And then the pilot says, well, we've got about 45 minutes of fuel. You know, I don't know why someone would say that. And my daughter's looking at her.
Made at the end, not right there, right?
I
Right.
said, listen, they're not going to let anybody run out of gas, you know. So you never know. Harvey says,
Anyway, guys, I gotta jump off here. It's been a pleasure.
Omar, we'll have you back. You're great today. Omar does his own thing. Why don't you just share really quick about Zumanity, and not Zumanity, but
Zoom.
Jeopardy?
Zoom party.
Yeah, Zoom party.
Yes, it's like a trivia game show that we've been doing all the fall time and the springtime, and now we teamed up with Matt Allen from Kudos, that miracle, and we're doing a show this Sunday and next Sunday, the finale. We're having a lot of people from LinkedIn joining and participating and watching. It's going to be a thrill. We have people from Bosnia, people from India. Leslie Flowers is going to participate, and we're
You
looking
better
for
watch out for Leslie.
yeah, well, it's going to be an interesting one. We're going to post it soon. Guys, it was a pleasure again, and I'm going to take off and see you next time.
Okay, fly like an eagle.
Eagle.
So
That's great.
now we got one less in the flock, but we'll keep it moving. So you know, it's kind of interesting how this has transformed this word into this conversation, and everybody seems to be laughing and smiling and happy about it. So you know, that's What wings can do is lift your smile, lift your laughter to a higher level, lift your energy, because it takes a lot of energy to fly, whether it's by wing or by fuel. So it just shows you it's really about the people, not the word. You can take any word with the right people and it'll take off in the right direction. It'll land well and it'll continue to support the people even after they're on the ground. So, what have you thought about this conversation with Wings today, Rita?
Wow. When I saw the word wings, I'm like, this is just the best word. And we already saw that so far. Everybody has different connotations of what that word is. And we're definitely flying. I keep flying. I've been flying all morning. There's another thing about that, Don, that flying around. We're flying around so much, we may be missing things right in front of us. What do you think about that?
Yeah, for sure. Everything is degree, there's no absolutes. There's times when you're tired of flying, right? Someone who's flown 2 or 3 times in a week, it's like, hey, I've had enough of this for a while. I need to rest up. Other people can't get enough of it. I guess that's why they work in an airplane, because they enjoy it or they align with it somehow. But it also, in its deeper root, is getting people from where they are to where they want to go.
Yes.
And I think that's what wings do, is transport you. If you're on floor 2, you need that elevator to get you to floor 3, or the stairs. Those are all wings to you because they lift you up, they move you forward. You never see a plane going backwards. You might see a car doing that. A horse could walk backwards, but a plane is never going to fly backwards because it's engineered to thrust it forward and to keep that lift up there. And that's what people should look at, is what airlines is everybody flying, right? If it's Dorita Airlines, do you want to board that ship and see where it can take you? If it's the Leslie Flowers or Paul or Omar, these are all flights that are waiting at the terminal. When you walk through a terminal and you see Los Angeles 3:15, San Francisco
Right.
4:15, or even if you just look at the board arriving and departing, if you just could say, I'll pick that one. And there was a time in aviation where I used to be able to go to the airport and just buy a ticket.
Right.
And I would say, well, and I did. Me and Ann used to take months and just decide where do we want to go. And we were pretty young then. And sometimes we say, well, let's go home. And sometimes I say, well, let's go to Newport Beach. It's only $89. And I know somebody. And pretty soon you could be in 6 cities in 10 days. And actually, they used to even have tickets that if you bought one ticket, you could fly like so
That's right.
long.
That's right.
Even around the world. Those days are over, but it does reflect that it's really taking people to places they couldn't have gone without it, and people work the same way. Paul says, wow, Rita, words, what a deep question. I suppose it all starts with listening to understand versus to respond. In my experience, I've had to fly into the window a few times to know, okay, you need to fix this, that. People burn out because they think they can't. And it finishes, can't stop. Sometimes we need to take a landing and rest to soar higher. Well, only you know how much fuel's in your tank. Only you know how much range you have, right? So you could say, yeah, I could do a short flight, but I'm not going to Australia today, or whatever it is. But it does appreciate, because I always equate it to like, it would have taken me 3 times longer to drive.
Right.
And the inconvenience of being on the road and fueling up and eating and sleeping and everything else, it just takes a lot of time too, away from whatever time you have. Paul comes back. Well, Dean says a sheaf, sometimes you have to let go to hang on. Again, you got to trust that everything's going to be fine. And if you're going to do something, why not do that? And trust yourself that you'll be okay. the chances of not being okay are much smaller than you think. I always look at flying, Paul says, as an adventure, as if I was on the roller coaster. Takeoff is always my favorite. I gave up roller coasters a long time ago. Better together. So right, Dean. LinkedIn user. First time I flew, my mom put me on the plane. I flew back home at 7 years old. The flight attendants were nice and checked on me. And then the pilot gave me some wings. You know, that used to be the norm. When kids would go on the plane, the cockpit door was open. And you could go in and the pilots would put you on their lap or
Yes, yes.
show you the gauges or whatever. And it was such a cool thing. And then you come back with a set of plastic wings or whatever it was, and you'd pin it on yourself. And how many memories did that provide? How many people felt safer meeting the pilot, seeing where the pilot sat and what they did? And that's where your questions can come in. I always say buy more vowels before you solve the puzzle. You know, if it's your first time, tell people it's your first time. They'll take better care of you. If you don't understand something that's bothering you, ask somebody you know, like the stewardess or somebody says, hey, what is this? You know, and once you understand, maybe there's other things you can have understand. Here's Linda, have a fantastic day. Hopefully, if need to, wing it, works out well. Well, you know, as long as we come back together and we're together and we're healthy, we got through it. You know, we had a safe flight and we're back on the runway to the next day of flying. Paul says, this is funny because today I'm flying solo on my live show. Yet something tells me this might be the most powerful show yet. Well, you know, sometimes a diverted flight is a more interesting flight because everything is fascinating in its own way. And what doesn't apply to what you expect should be a welcome surprise in some cases, because if you always think there's more to it than you know, if you always believe the story has yet to be told and you're only maybe halfway through, let it unwind in front of you. Loving this conversation on wings. Great.
Me too.
I'm glad we picked wings. I can relate, Don, over the past 1.5 years, I've traveled more than the first 20 years of my life combined. I never thought I'd get burned out from flying. It taught me gratitude for being home and for stability. And I'm always, if you could snap your fingers and take me from the airport to the next airport, I'd skip the flight, you know? So, but it is the best way you can get to someplace. And you know, the other thing is you never know who you're going to meet on that flight. I met some really, really fascinating people through conversation that made the flight so much better for me. And it got lively. And even sometimes I used to take a deck of cards because me and my business partner used to fly and we played gin rummy along the way.
Right.
Sometimes if you're losing, you're hoping the flight took longer. Wings propel you forward. Paul says, love that share, Ashley. I haven't seen Ashley share, but you know, we're coming up on top of the hour.
Right.
I can't thank everybody enough because this is like a quality first-class flight we take every day together. And, you know, we got linen napkins here and hot food, and, you know, a little bit more room. And it allows us all to soar a little higher. You know, we are a great group of geese, I guess you can call that in a way, because we do look after the fallen ones. We try to support everybody. And the only way we can do that is for people sharing it in a community way, you know, in a way that benefits everybody and reflects people's appreciation for being in the group. Because, you know, leadership is what keeps everything together. And the fuel drives every plane. So with that said, final words, Rita, this has been a quality show.
Oh, wow. I just jotted down 3 words. Wings of hope.
Well, that's a great flight plan in itself. And, you know, polish your wings out there. Make them shine. You know, one thing you see about wings, when the sun hits them, it's like a mirror that reflects, you know, and there's something to that silvery, you know, on the wings of a bird, you know, was a song. And I know Anne Murray was always big on songs like that. And there's so much you can equate to wings, from angels to planes to you name it. And that's why you name it is so important. And everything you can surround yourself with a quality word, hopefully expands your definition of other words and how other people use their words with you, that maybe now you have, well, now I can see it from that standpoint, right? You know, and ultimately in closing, wings create freedom. And yesterday was our commemoration of freedom. And it should continue today and fly from that airport of yesterday into tomorrow and bring back the story to us, and let's all celebrate. I think here's Paul that says, wow, Rita, what a deep question. I suppose it's also okay. I've had to fly. Okay, we covered that. So thank you very much. I think here's Harvey that says, I have to fly, but I've loved the conversation. Thank you, everyone. Keep winging it. You never know where it'll take you. And here's what Anjan says. The largest bird has wings. Petra, who I haven't seen, I know she's going through a couple things. Great to see you. Ashif ends with, once our plane was hit by lightning on the wing, it woke everyone up. It was fun. Have a good day. I'm glad it just did that. I think we're going to talk. I'm going to have Ashif on the show. So with that, Rita, I can't thank you enough. I can't thank Omar enough. Look forward to seeing everybody on the next flight tomorrow. And with that said, tomorrow's guest will be Kelly Kinga and myself. Right. Friday, we've got Christy and maybe another guest. Saturday, we got Leslie and Melissa coming back. And then Sunday, we've got Harvey and Leslie Flowers. And Monday, a new combination. We're going to have Jody Lamb and Mike from the Hounds on Monday. Beverly's coming back on Tuesday. It only gets better. Thank you all very much. Fly as high as you can. Have as much fun as you can.
Spread your wings.
Yeah, and we'll be flying together soon. Take care.